The owner was so blown away that she not only paid my fee, but handed me a 10% cut once the pieces sold. That cut? $76,000. More than I'd made in the last 2 years combined. From there, things exploded. Collectors started calling. Estate attorneys wanted consultations. Even my old auction house started quietly sending work my way. I'm 99% sure Parker was helping behind the scenes. If he was, I'll always be grateful. By the second year, I hired my first employee, Mia. Fresh GIA graduate. Quiet, sharp, and ridiculously overlooked. Basically me, a decade younger. Today, she's my head of authentication and worth every cent of her salary. The business took off. We moved out of Kung Pao HQ and into a real office downtown. Brought on more staff. Built a name for ourselves, one built on precision, honesty, and knowing how to tell a ruby from red glass. You'd be shocked how many million-dollar heirlooms are sitting in people's attics labeled costume. And during all the success, I got to do something that meant more than any auction result ever could: help Grandma Kathleen. She called me one night, voice tight, clearly uncomfortable. Her roof was leaking. She needed $15,000 for repairs. On her fixed income, that was impossible. I transferred the money that same night. Told her it was an advance for future consultations. We both knew that was fiction. But it let her keep her dignity, and I finally got the chance to take care of the one person who had always looked out for me. Of course, success brought its own set of problems. The bigger my company got, the harder it became to keep it hidden from my family. They still thought I was working at some hole-in-the-wall antique shop. At Sunday dinners, Cynthia would make these snide little jabs. "Cynthia, Edward, I found a box of old jewelry I was gonna donate. Maybe your little shop wants it?" Me, having just authenticated a $1.4 million Faberge egg that morning. "Sure, bring it by." Mom still introduces me as my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something, I think. Meanwhile, I'd just been quoted in Forbes under my business name, thank God, and we had opened our third office. The weirdest part? Keeping the whole thing a secret actually started to feel fun. Like this ongoing private joke I had with myself. I'd show up at Sunday dinners wearing what looked like a clearance rack special from Target, but was actually a tailored Prada blouse, and sit there while Cynthia went on and on about her entry-level marketing job. Meanwhile, I'd just closed a deal that paid more than her entire annual salary. Sometimes I made a game of it, wearing Real Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings, just to see if anyone would notice. Spoiler, they never did. One time, Cynthia spent nearly half an hour showing off her luxury $250 Michael Kors watch like it was a family heirloom. The whole time, I had a vintage Patek Philippe on my wrist, worth more than her car, and no one batted an eye. By year 5, the business had grown like wildfire. We had offices in Chicago, New York, and Boston. I spent more time in the air than on the ground. Our reputation for discretion? Flawless. Turns out, rich folks really don't like people knowing what kind of jewelry they're hiding in safes and secret vaults. I once met the widow of a Texas oil magnate. She came in through the service entrance after hours, terrified her stepkids would find out she was reappraising the entire family collection before changing her will. Another time, I flew overseas on a private jet to authenticate a royal family's heirlooms ahead of a hush-hush auction. Meanwhile, my parents still thought I was logging inventory at a mom-and-pop antique shop downtown. And the money? Let's just say I had to bring on a team of financial advisors because it stopped being good and started being life-altering. But I kept it low-key. Bought a nice, quiet house in a good neighborhood. Drove a luxury car that didn't scream rich, just whispered it. The only place I splurged was my home office, top-of-the-line authentication tools, biometric security, and a custom vault that could have held up in a heist movie. The kicker? My parents thought I was being frugal for their sake. Mom once said, "It's so sweet how Edward's trying to help out. Poor thing must be living on ramen noodles just to pitch in." Meanwhile, I just authenticated a private collection that netted me a commission bigger than their mortgage. You know what's strange about success? The more of it you get, the harder it becomes to explain to people who've only ever seen you as the underachiever. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's only seen grayscale. They just don't have the reference point. At this stage, my company was thriving. We dominated the high-end authentication market in the Midwest, and our name carried weight. Solid gold, pun fully intended. But every Sunday, I'd roll up to my parents' house and pretend to be Edward, the humble jewelry store worker. It was getting ridiculous. I'd spend my mornings on conference calls with collectors in Dubai, my afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and then change into something casual. To go eat dry pot roast while Cynthia bragged about successfully delivering coffee to her boss without spilling it. One Sunday in particular really stands out. That morning, I'd finalized a deal on a long-lost Parthian piece that had been hidden in a safety deposit box for 40 years. My commission alone? 7 figures. I showed up to dinner still buzzing, trying to keep a straight face. Mom, Edward, sweetheart, are you okay? Your clothes are looking a little worn. Me, trying to cut costs. I was wearing a $2,800 cashmere sweater, deliberately plain. Cynthia, well, maybe if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with dusty jewelry. Dad, nodding seriously, Cynthia, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I almost choked on my forkful of pot roast, trying not to laugh. Not long after, Aunt Shirley told me they were in a financial bind. Between Cynthia's student loans and some medical bills, things were tight. Mom mentioned they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. So I started anonymously transferring $5,000 a month into their account. When Mom asked where the money was coming from, I shrugged and told her I was just budgeting better. I claimed I was giving $1,000 and maybe Aunt Shirley or someone else was kicking in the rest. Cynthia, of course, took full credit. Told everyone she'd rallied the family to help out. And sure, the money helped them, but it also came with an unspoken price. My parents started treating me like some noble martyr, praising me in this weird, patronizing way. Like I was sacrificing everything to help them, barely scraping by. Meanwhile, Cynthia started showing up with new designer bags every week. Outlet finds, she claimed. Right. I can spot real Gucci at 20 paces, and that bag was the real deal. Her vacations got fancier too. #blessed posts from Greece and Bora Bora started popping up on her feed. I said nothing. The irony was too rich. Then came the MBA situation. Cynthia announced she was going back to school. Of course, not just any school, another expensive private university. Top tier because the golden child doesn't do community college. Mom called me in tears, saying they didn't have the money. Me, maybe she could look into a state program? They've got good options. Mom, oh sweetie, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. Then came the ask, do you think you could increase your monthly contribution? Just for a few years? So I bumped it up to $7,000 a month. My accounts barely noticed. But what got me wasn't the money, it was watching them heap praise on Cynthia for taking charge of her future, while still seeing me as the selfless, slightly pitiful sibling who lives off instant noodles to help out. The real kicker? I was invited to guest lecture at the same business school Cynthia was applying to. The dean personally asked me to speak about luxury authentication and how I built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch. I couldn't tell my family, of course. I made up an excuse and skipped Sunday dinner that week. During that lecture, standing in front of a room full of MBA students talking about how to value rare historical artifacts, all I could think about was what would happen if Cynthia suddenly walked in. Would she recognize me? Would she finally realize who I was and blow my cover? Even while speaking confidently about market trends and provenance documentation, part of me was still stuck in that childhood fear of being exposed. Living this double life had started to feel like something out of a comic book. By day, I was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar authentication business. By night, well, Sunday evenings, I went back to being Edward, the underachieving daughter who helped out at some dusty antique shop. The more success I found, the heavier the lie became. Every time Cynthia made a snide jab about my little hobby, every time Mom excused my modest lifestyle to her friends, every time Dad suggested I look into getting a real job, something stable, with benefits. There were moments when I nearly told them everything. Like when Dad mentioned he'd been skipping his blood pressure medication because of the cost. I wanted to say, I could buy your whole pharmacy, Dad. Or when Mom quietly said she was putting off dental work because insurance wouldn't cover it. Every time, I just arranged for a little more to land in their account. Eventually, I found myself in therapy. Dr. Joshua was the first person, besides Aunt Shirley, who knew the whole truth. She became the sounding board I didn't know I needed. "You're enabling the dysfunction," she said. "Giving them money with no boundaries only reinforces the roles they've put you in." And she was right. I knew it. But I also wasn't ready to deal with the emotional fallout of telling the truth. I think deep down, I always suspected it would all blow up eventually. I just didn't know it would all come crashing down over stuffing and sweet potatoes. It started 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Mom called in tears. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the thought of cooking dinner for 20 people had her overwhelmed. Now, I wish I could say I offered to help out of the goodness of my heart, but really? I was just tired of choking down her overcooked turkey. "Why don't I take care of the food this year?" I offered. "I'll get it catered." Mom's first reaction, "Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer." "Don't worry," I said. "I've been saving up." Then came the kicker. "You're not taking out a loan for this, are you?" I didn't correct her. I just quietly booked one of the high-end catering companies I use for corporate events. The kind of place where even the Brussels sprouts taste like they came from a 5-star kitchen. It cost more than they thought I earned in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning came, and I was feeling pretty damn proud of myself. I even brought my laptop, had to keep an eye on a major auction happening in Hong Kong. A rare Art Nouveau necklace was going up, and one of my top clients wanted me ready to authenticate it the second the bidding closed. Everything arrived on time. The food was gorgeous. Plated. Labeled. Fresh. Cynthia, of course, had to ruin the moment. "Store-bought stuffing? Really, Edward? Mom's is way better." This from the girl who once burned microwave popcorn. Mom apologized for not cooking, but everyone else was practically licking their plates. Cynthia finally shut up after trying the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, by the way, cost more per serving than her entire weekly grocery bill. After dinner, I slipped into my old bedroom to check on the auction. The same room Mom had kept untouched since I was 17. Meanwhile, Cynthia's room had gone through 3 remodels. I had a bunch of tabs open, authentication software, contract details, financial reports. I wasn't hiding anything, because I didn't think anyone would look. Then, of course, Cynthia barged in without knocking, classic move, to borrow a charger. That's when she saw the laptop. She smirked. "Let's see what kind of important work you're doing." Before I could stop her, she snatched the laptop and walked back into the dining room like she'd just caught me hiding a secret boyfriend or watching trashy TV. Picture this. 20 people gathered around the table, buzzed on good wine they assumed came from Trader Joe's, plates piled high, napkins still on laps. Cynthia held up my laptop. "Let's see what Edward's really been working on." She turned the screen toward everyone. And then, silence. Not just any silence. The kind that makes you aware of every single sound in the room. You could hear the ticking of the expensive wall clock I'd given Mom as a reproduction last year. It wasn't displayed on the screen. Current account balance, $47 million. Pending authentication contract, $425,000. Recent transaction, $1.2 million. Quarterly profit report, Hong Kong auction house, $3.8 million. Cynthia's face shifted through 5 emotions in the span of a breath. Shock. Confusion. Denial. jealousy, and finally a panic. She actually wobbled on her heels. This can't be right, she whispered. Mom looked concerned. Cynthia, what is it? Cynthia's voice cracked. She's rich. Like really rich. If it was possible, the silence in the room grew deeper. A whole vacuum of disbelief. Then Mom started laughing. Like, full-on belly laughter. Oh, don't be silly, she said, wiping her eyes. Edward works at that little antique shop. I stood up slowly, smoothed out my sweater, a plain-looking cashmere top that cost more than their mortgage. Then I said it. Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. Have for years. Those antique shop comments? I've been authenticating pieces worth millions. I have offices in Chicago, New York, and Boston. The business you never asked about? It's mine. I built it. Dad choked on his wine. Aunt Shirley dropped her fork. Uncle Mark started coughing so hard he had to get up from the table. Mom's laughter died in her throat. Her face flushed, red first, then pale, then this strange mix of anger and confusion. She stood up so fast, her chair toppled backward. Mom exploded first. Screaming, red-faced, "You've been sitting on millions and let us suffer?" I just stared at her. Suffer? I've been sending you $7,000 every single month. That only made her angrier. 7,000. While you hoard millions. Your sister has student loans. And there it was. Not a hint of congratulations. No, we're proud of you. Just outraged that I hadn't handed over more money. Cynthia burst into tears, shocker, and started wailing about how I had betrayed the family and how she deserved to know. As if my success had personally wronged her. Then Dad jumped in, his voice sharp and bitter. How could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you. And that's when I snapped. All the years of being pushed aside. All the times I was treated like an afterthought. The holidays spent alone, the empty audience at every event, the years of being told I should understand why Cynthia needed more, it finally came pouring out. Raised me, I said. You shipped me off every time I so much as sniffled. You missed every award, every recital, every moment, because God forbid Cynthia feel left out. You saved nothing for my college, but took out loans so she could go to private school. And now you're mad because I built a life for myself. What followed was pure chaos. Mom yelling about how I had obligations to the family. Dad ranting about how I was an ungrateful child. Cynthia alternating between tears and demands to know exactly how much I had in my accounts. Meanwhile, the catering team awkwardly tried to serve dessert like this was any normal Thanksgiving and not a complete meltdown. I grabbed my laptop, took my Hermes bag, yeah, the one Mom once complimented as such a good knockoff, and walked straight out. As I left, I could hear Mom already scheming about what to do with my money, something about Cynthia's MBA and a new car for herself. I drove home in my low-key but limited edition BMW, the one they assumed I'd leased with coupons, and my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. The family group chat had exploded. Cynthia was already on Facebook posting big nonsense about hidden wealth, greedy siblings, and betrayal within the family. The next few days felt like watching a train wreck in slow motion, except the wreck was my family, and I was the one they were tossing under the wheels. Within the first hour after I walked out, I had 52 missed calls and over 200 texts. Mom's messages were a masterclass in manipulation. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk about this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Meanwhile, Cynthia had gone full reality TV meltdown online. She posted a dramatic Facebook rant about how I'd hoarded millions while the family struggled. The comments were wild. Distant cousins I hadn't heard from in a decade suddenly had strong opinions about my lack of moral compass. But the post that made me almost toss my phone across the room, She wrote. All those years I tried to help Edward with her career, giving advice, encouraging her to do more than that antique shop, and she was hiding this whole empire. I feel so betrayed. Her career advice? Once she told me I should try selling handmade jewelry on Etsy. Then came the flying monkeys. Aunt Nancy, who I see maybe once every leap year, called to remind me that family is everything. Uncle Kevin, who still calls me kiddo, like I'm 12, emailed me an essay-length message about the moral duty of wealth redistribution. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how she got my number, I'll never know, texted to scold me about helping where you can. But nothing prepared me for Monday morning. I walked into the office like usual, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and Cynthia, sitting in my reception area, smug as anything. They told Emily, my receptionist, they were there for an authentication appointment. Cynthia held her Michael Kors bag like it was treasure. The conversation was exactly what you'd expect. Mom, we've talked it over as a family. Me, a family discussion that didn't include the person you're talking about? Mom, ignoring that, and we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. Cynthia, I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad, and your mother and I are ready to retire. We're thinking something modest, maybe a beach house in Florida. I blinked. Did any of you remember I've been sending $7,000 to your account every month? Cynthia crossed her arms. That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so absurd I couldn't believe I was living it. Owe you? For what? For years of silence? For missed graduations? For pretending I didn't exist unless you needed something? Mom put on her calmest, fakest voice. Edward, don't be dramatic. We gave you everything. No, I said. I gave me everything. And I'm done. Right there, in my own office, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly transfer. With one swipe, it was over. Mom gasped like I'd physically slapped her. Cynthia opened her mouth to cry, saw I wasn't reacting, and closed it just as fast. And then it got ugly. They refused to leave. Started shouting. I had to call security. Watching my 60-year-old mother get escorted out of my building while yelling about how I'd abandoned the family was surreal. Like watching a bad TV drama, only I was living it. Emily, bless her, asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but I did have their names added to the building's do not admit list. The harassment didn't stop. New phone numbers, fake emails, even tried messaging my company through customer service. I had to send a formal legal notice warning them to back off or risk harassment charges. Then Mom played her last card. She called Grandma Kathleen. But Grandma? She's sharper than any of them. When Mom told her what happened, Grandma's reply was simple. Good for Edward. About time someone in this family made it on their own. Mom didn't speak to her for 2 whole months after that. It's been 6 months now. I've moved to a new house, with security gates, a different zip code, and a lot more peace. Changed all my numbers. I've learned to live with the silence, and honestly, it's the most peaceful silence I've ever known. The business? Thriving. And me? I'm finally, truly free. Funny thing? The Thanksgiving meltdown actually ended up being good for business. Turns out, word travels fast in certain circles, and some very high-profile clients were impressed by how I handled the situation. Discretion matters in my line of work, and apparently surviving a family ambush with grace is a real selling point. Cynthia, of course, hasn't let it go. She's still out here posting vague Instagram captions about toxic wealth and family betrayal, complete with filtered selfies and captions about healing. Last I heard, she's planning to start her own jewelry authentication business. All I can say is, good luck with that. As for my parents, things finally went quiet after my lawyer stepped in. He sent them a very professional letter explaining how continued contact would cross into legal harassment and what that could mean for their future. They got the message. Now they're telling everyone they never wanted my money anyway and that they're praying for my soul. Sure, Larry. But here's the real win, the part that matters. For the first time in my life, I feel free. No more awkward Sunday dinners where I sit there smiling through thinly veiled digs. No more pretending my success is small just to make other people comfortable. No more bankrolling Cynthia's shopping sprees and fake career plans. My therapist says I've finally set real boundaries. I say I've finally started living in a way that feels honest. So yeah, that's my story. Thanks for letting me share it. Oh, and shout out to the catering company from that infamous Thanksgiving. They sent me a Christmas card that read, "Best dinner of the year, October 10th would serve during future family implosions." Iconic. And finally, just a little note, in case someone is reading this. Hey, Cynthia? That Cartier bracelet you were flashing in your last Instagram post? Yeah, definitely a fake. Just saying.